Hello and welcome to my channel. In today's video, we will take a closer look at the story of the Edmund Fitzgerald, whose crew was never seen, and also explore why his sinking fascinates us many years later. But before we get into that story, if you are a fan or lover of strange, creepy, weird and mysterious stories, you have come to the right place. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please click on the subscribe button and also remember to turn on the bell notification so you can get notified anytime I upload a new video. Now let's get into today's story. The Edmund Fitzgerald was a ship that carried cargo across the Great Lakes for over 2 decades. Then on November 14, 1975, the boat sank in a violent storm, taking 29 crew members on board, and few understand what happened to cause the freighter to sink. The ship was carrying a cargo of iron ore pellets weighing about 26,100 tons, and it left from Superior, Wisconsin, heading to the steel mill on Zug Island. The trip was nothing special, and it was a routine run that the ship had done many times in a 17-year run. There should have been nothing about the trip that the ship couldn't handle with its advanced radar and technology. The trip came at the end of the year, right when the weather was getting colder and the waves were getting higher. The Edmund Fitzgerald was one of the largest ships on the Great Lakes at the time, measuring 729 feet long, 39 feet tall, and 75 feet wide. Quite literally, the ship was barely able to pass through the St. Lawrence Seaway. It was built with a double hull design to protect against sinking, and it had a crew of 29 experienced sailors. This ship was designed to carry these taconite pellets to ironworks from Duluth to places like Detroit and Toledo. Still, many were puzzled at how the gigantic boat could have sunken like that when it was made to withstand any water conditions. Word of an approaching storm from the National Weather Service was announced, a gale warning for Lake Superior. The exciting thing about Lake Superior is that it takes a lot to create big waves. Even when there are big waves, they don't usually last long. The problem with this particular storm was that it was a bit different than typical storms that pass through the area in November, and the freighter was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Ultimately, the storm will generate hurricane force winds and waves on Lake Superior that would reach approximately 25 to 35 feet high. That wouldn't have been such a problem for the Fitzgerald had the storm not moved consistently and changed the direction of the wind. The crew altered their course to have land protect them from the giant waves of a storm, but the storm moved and put the freighter directly in the path of the storm and its waves. It's estimated that over 6,000 ships and 30,000 lives have been lost in the Great Lakes over its history due to how the lakes affect ships. It was a typical November that year, but around 8 storms were forecasted to be in the Fitzgerald's direct path, and so as the storms grew stronger and approached the Fitzgerald's planned route, they learned they might have to change course. This wasn't a problem, as the route would take them north towards the coast of Canada. The northern way would protect them from the massive waves generated by the storm. Generally, a course change would be all that was necessary, and this storm wasn't typical. Unfortunately, the storm constantly moved, changing the wind direction and the waves' height. By the time the freighter had made it to Whitefish Bay, they were forced to take a more southerly route, which put them in danger of the giant waves. The waves were so big that they started breaking over the ship's decks and the water washed over them. By the time conditions had worsened, the ship had lost a rail, 2 ventilators, and a radar array. Eventually, the Fitzgerald lost both radars and was sailing blind. To make matters worse, the ship was listing to one side and taking on heavy water more than the 2 bilge pumps could remove. Throughout the developing storm, the Fitzgerald communicated with other ships in the area, namely the Anderson and Aberfoyle. In the late afternoon, the Fitzgerald contacted the Aberfoyle and mentioned that their boat was damaged, naming up the damages and commenting on the dire conditions of the water. Around 7 p.m. that evening, the Anderson contacted the Fitzgeralds again, noting their location on their radar. When asked how they were doing, the Fitzgerald responded, "We are holding our own." Shortly after, the Anderson lost them on the radar and no one could contact them. Unfortunately, the Fitzgerald had quickly sunk, with the crew most likely not realizing the true seriousness of their damage. The team made no distress call, nor were rescue operations attempted. A marine casualty report by United States Coast Guard later determined some factors contributing to the freighter's sinking. The Marine Board of Investigation's casualty report found that the freighter had sunk because of a series of factors, including the load line may have been lower than seasonally appropriate. When a ship is loaded with cargo, it rests on the water at a certain level, referred to as a load line. The cargo was always loaded through a topside hatchway during the load process. On October 31, routine damage was noted during an inspection and was scheduled for repair after the shipping season. The Fitzgerald likely took on the water with these contributing factors when the waves broke over their decks. The load likely rushed forward, plowing the bow into the bottom of the lake and disintegrating the ship. It's highly that the ship snapped in two and sank quickly, which would have made no time for distress calls or rescue operations. Upon further inspection, it seems that the lifeboats were ripped off from the racks, which is why the remains of 2 lifeboats were found in the wreckage. The sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald is often referred to as a perfect storm because all of the conditions had to line up for it to happen. However, a series of preventable errors and bad luck resulted in the ship sinking. At the same time, November is a difficult time for shipping in this area due to the season shift of the popular jet stream. Approximately 40% of all Great Lakes shipwrecks occurred in November. The ship needed repairs that were never made. The load line may not have been appropriate for the season, and they were sailing in an area known for its danger. While the crew did everything they could to save the ship, in the end it wasn't enough. The Edmund Fitzgerald now rests at the bottom of the Lake Superior, and the Coast Guard never recovered its crew. The story of the Edmund Fitzgerald is a tragedy, but is also a reminder of the dangers of shipping on the Great Lakes. I have come to the end of today's video, and if you watched till the end, thanks for watching. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts. See you in another video.